There comes a moment in every life when the stories we have been telling ourselves become too small to hold the truth. We call it love, because the word is beautiful. We call it loyalty, because it sounds noble. We call it sacrifice because we have been taught that giving more of ourselves is proof that our hearts are pure. But there is a difference between giving and disappearing. There is a difference between loving someone and slowly forgetting your own reflection. That difference is where so many lives quietly begin to break. The hardest truths never arrive shouting. They sit beside us in silence. They wait through sleepless nights, unanswered messages, empty promises, and smiles that hide exhaustion. They wait until one ordinary day we look in the mirror and realize we have spent more time trying to be enough for someone else than remembering we were already enough. Before they arrived, relationships have the power to awaken the best parts of us, but they also have the power to expose the wounds we never believed were still open. They reveal the places where fear disguises itself as devotion, where loneliness wears the mask of commitment, and where hope convinces us to stay long after peace has quietly left the room. The most dangerous lies are not always spoken by another person. Sometimes they are whispered by our own hearts, desperate to believe that tomorrow will become everything yesterday promised. The truth is not cruel because it wishes to hurt us. It feels brutal because it tears away the comforting illusions we have carefully wrapped around our pain. It asks impossible questions. Why are you fighting so hard for someone who has stopped fighting for you? Why do you keep explaining your worth to people who have already decided not to see it? Why have you mistaken surviving a relationship for being loved within it? Today is not about blaming anyone. It is about seeing clearly, because the moment you can see clearly is the moment your life begins to change. And sometimes the greatest act of love is not holding on tighter. It is having the courage to loosen your grip on what is slowly teaching you to forget yourself. Before you can build a relationship that nourishes your soul, you must first be willing to face the truths that challenge everything you thought love was. Love has often been celebrated as a force powerful enough to overcome every obstacle, heal every wound, and erase every difference. While love is extraordinary, it cannot repair what people refuse to face. A relationship built on hidden resentment, broken trust, unspoken expectations, or repeated dishonesty slowly weakens, no matter how deeply two people claim to care for each other. Truth is the foundation that allows love to grow. Without it, love becomes an idea instead of a reality, and even the strongest feelings begin to lose their strength beneath the weight of denial. Many people believe avoiding difficult conversations protects a relationship. Stay silent to prevent arguments, ignore disrespect to keep the peace, or pretend everything is fine because they fear losing the person they love. Yet silence has a way of collecting pain. Every ignored disappointment, every swallowed emotion, and every unspoken hurt becomes another brick in an invisible wall separating two hearts. Over time, people who once felt deeply connected begin to feel like strangers. Not because love disappeared overnight, but because truth was never invited into the room. Real honesty is uncomfortable. It asks people to admit when they are wrong, acknowledge their fears, and reveal the parts of themselves they would rather keep hidden. It requires vulnerability instead of pride. It is much easier to say, "Everything is okay," than to confess, "I feel unseen," or "Your words hurt me," or "I am afraid we are drifting apart." But relationships cannot heal problems that are never named. What remains hidden cannot be repaired, and what is ignored often grows stronger in the shadows. Truth also means recognizing people for who they are, instead of who we hope they will become. Hope is beautiful, but when it replaces reality, it becomes dangerous. Many remain in unhealthy relationships because they keep falling in love with potential rather than consistent behavior. They remember the promises instead of noticing the patterns. They wait for change while overlooking the evidence that change may never come. Love should inspire growth, but it should never require blindness. Seeing someone clearly is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of wisdom. Honesty begins with yourself before it reaches another person. It requires asking difficult questions that many avoid. Am I respected? Am I valued? Can I express my thoughts without fear? Do I feel emotionally safe, or am I constantly walking on fragile ground? These questions are uncomfortable because the answers may force difficult decisions. Yet living with uncomfortable truth is far healthier than living inside comforting illusion. A healthy relationship is not one where two perfect people never disagree. It is one where truth is welcomed instead of feared. Mistakes are acknowledged instead of defended. Apologies are followed by changed behavior instead of repeated excuses. Trust grows because honesty is practiced consistently, not only when it is convenient. Every truthful conversation, even the painful ones, strengthens the foundation between two people because it replaces guessing with understanding and fear with clarity. The greatest threat to love is rarely conflict itself. Conflict handled with honesty can deepen understanding and create stronger bonds. The real danger is pretending there is no conflict at all. While disappointment quietly accumulates beneath the surface, relationships rarely collapse because of one dramatic moment. They often erode through countless small moments when truth was sacrificed for temporary comfort. Every time honesty is postponed, distance quietly takes its place. Every time reality is ignored, illusion gains another day to survive, until one morning the relationship feels unfamiliar. Not because love was absent, but because truth was never given the chance to keep it alive. Love should never require the disappearance of the person who is giving it. Yet this is one of the quietest tragedies in many relationships. People slowly begin to reshape themselves, not because they have discovered a better version of who they are, but because they fear that being their authentic selves will no longer be enough. They become smaller, quieter, and more agreeable. They silence opinions, hide emotions, abandon dreams, and ignore personal boundaries, estasis emsas, believing that every piece of themselves they surrender is another step toward keeping the relationship alive. What feels like devotion in the beginning often becomes self-abandonment in the end. This kind of sacrifice rarely happens all at once. It unfolds in small, almost invisible moments. A person stops speaking up because every disagreement leads to conflict. They stop spending time with friends because it causes jealousy. They stop pursuing passions because they are constantly expected to prioritize someone else's needs. They apologize even when they have done nothing wrong. Because peace seems easier than being understood, each compromise feels insignificant on its own, but together they slowly erase the identity that once made them feel alive. The danger is that self-abandonment often disguises itself as love. Society frequently praises endless sacrifice as proof of commitment. We admire those who give everything without asking for much in return. While generosity is a beautiful quality, there is a difference between giving from abundance and giving until nothing remains. A healthy relationship allows both people to grow. An unhealthy one quietly convinces one person that their needs, dreams, and voice matter less than keeping the other person comfortable. Many people mistake constant accommodation for kindness. They become experts at reading another person's emotions while completely ignoring their own. They know exactly what will make their partner happy, yet they cannot remember the last time they asked themselves what they truly wanted. Over time, this creates an exhausting imbalance. One person becomes accustomed to receiving understanding, while the other becomes accustomed to surviving without it. Love cannot flourish where only one heart is consistently carrying the emotional weight. Fear often sits beneath self-abandonment. There is fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of conflict, and fear that setting boundaries will push the other person away. These fears can become so powerful that people begin believing they must earn love through constant self-sacrifice. They think, if I become easier to love, they will finally choose me completely. But love that depends on pretending to be someone else is never secure. It is tied to a version of yourself that cannot be sustained forever. True love does not demand that you betray your own values. It does not punish honesty or make authenticity feel dangerous. Instead, it creates space for differences, respects individuality, and welcomes conversations where both people feel heard. Two lives can become deeply connected without one life being swallowed by the other. Healthy relationships celebrate uniqueness. Rather than demanding uniformity, they recognize that love grows stronger when each person is free to remain whole, instead of becoming a shadow of who they once were. There is great courage in remembering yourself after spending years trying to become everything for someone else. It means rediscovering forgotten interests, rebuilding confidence, reconnecting with people who remind you who you are, and learning that your worth has never depended on another person's approval. Boundaries stop feeling selfish and begin feeling necessary. Saying no no longer carries guilt but wisdom. Speaking honestly no longer feels like rebellion, but respect for your own voice. The relationship you have with yourself becomes the standard by which every other relationship is measured. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself is the moment you stop asking others for permission to exist as the person you were always meant to be. Words are powerful. They can comfort a wounded heart, inspire hope, and paint beautiful pictures of the future. A sincere promise can make someone believe that better days are just around the corner. But relationships are not sustained by words alone. They are built through consistent actions that prove those words are genuine. Anyone can speak with confidence in a moment of emotion, but only character determines whether those promises survive the ordinary days that follow. The difference between empty affection and genuine love is not found in what people say when everything feels perfect. It is revealed by what they repeatedly do when life becomes difficult. Many relationships begin with grand declarations. People promise forever, loyalty, understanding, and unwavering support. In this excitement of new love, every sentence sounds convincing because both hearts are filled with hope, yet time has a way of testing every promise. It asks whether kindness remains after disagreements, whether respect survives disappointment, and whether commitment continues when convenience disappears. Words may create expectations, but actions determine whether those expectations become reality. One of the hardest lessons to accept is that repeated behavior tells a more honest story than repeated apologies. Someone may apologize every time they hurt you, but if the same behavior continues week after week, the apology slowly loses its meaning. Regret without change is simply another cycle waiting to repeat itself. True remorse is visible. It changes habits, encourages accountability, and produces different choices. When actions remain unchanged, the relationship stays trapped in the same painful pattern. No matter how beautiful the promises sound, consistency is often overlooked because it lacks drama. Grand romantic gestures receive attention, but the small daily actions are what truly shape a relationship. Being present when someone needs support, listening without distraction, keeping commitments, showing respect during disagreements, remembering important moments, and choosing honesty even when it is uncomfortable. These ordinary acts quietly build trust over time. Love is rarely defined by extraordinary moments alone. It is strengthened by countless ordinary moments, where one person repeatedly demonstrates that the other can depend on them. It is also important to recognize the difference between potential and reality. Many people stay in relationships because they believe the other person will eventually become who they promised to be. They hold on to future possibilities while ignoring present behavior. Hope can be inspiring, but when it consistently excuses harmful patterns, it becomes a barrier to clear judgment. A person should be appreciated for who they consistently today, not only for who they might become tomorrow. Waiting endlessly for actions to match words can leave someone emotionally exhausted. Investing years in expectations that never materialize. Trust grows through predictability. When someone's words and actions consistently align, you begin to feel safe. You no longer wonder whether promises will be broken or whether affection depends on circumstances. That sense of security allows vulnerability to flourish, because reliability creates emotional stability. On the other hand, when actions constantly contradict spoken intentions, confusion takes its place. Mixed signals create anxiety, causing people to question not only the relationship, but also their own judgment. This principle applies equally to ourselves. It is easy to promise patience, forgiveness, or better communication, but meaningful change requires discipline and effort. Healthy relationships ask both people to become individuals, whose behavior reflects their values. Integrity is not measured by the elegance of our words but by the consistency of our choices. Every decision, no matter how small, either strengthens trust or weakens it. Over time, people remember less about the promises they heard, and far more about the way they were treated. Because actions leave impressions that words alone can never erase, and a relationship grounded in dependable behavior will always stand stronger than one sustained only by beautiful conversations and hopeful intentions. Love is one of the most profound experiences a person can have, yet it is also one of the easiest emotions to misunderstand. Many people spend years believing they are deeply in love, when, in reality, they are emotionally attached. The two can feel remarkably similar in the beginning, because both create a strong desire to be close to another person. But over time, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Genuine love brings freedom, growth, and security, while unhealthy attachment often brings fear, anxiety, and dependence. Understanding this difference can transform not only the relationships we choose, but also the relationship we have with ourselves. Attachment is often rooted in need rather than choice. It whispers that happiness cannot exist without the other person. It convinces someone that being alone is unbearable. Even if the relationship itself is causing constant pain, a person trapped in attachment may overlook disrespect, tolerate dishonesty, or repeatedly forgive harmful behavior, because the thought of losing the relationship feels more frightening than the suffering it creates. The fear of separation becomes stronger than the desire for peace, and slowly the relationship becomes less about love and more about avoiding loneliness. Genuine love, however, grows from a place of wholeness instead of emptiness. It is not driven by desperation or insecurity, but by appreciation and respect. Two people choose to walk beside one another, not because they are incapable of standing alone, but because they enrich each other's lives. Love celebrates individuality rather than trying to erase it. It encourages dreams instead of limiting them. It supports personal growth instead of demanding constant sacrifice. In true love, both people feel accepted for who they are, rather than pressured to become someone else. Fear is one of the clearest signs that attachment has begun to replace love. When every unanswered message creates panic, every disagreement feels like the end of the relationship, and every moment apart feels unbearable, emotional dependence has quietly taken control. Instead of enjoying the relationship, a person spends much of their energy trying to protect it from imagined threats. Jealousy becomes easier than trust. Control feels safer than freedom. Possessiveness disguises itself as affection, even though it slowly suffocates the very connection it hopes to preserve. Attachment also creates unrealistic expectations. One person begins expecting the other to fill every emotional void, solve every insecurity, and provide constant reassurance. This places an impossible burden on the relationship, because no human being can permanently heal another person's deepest fears. Lasting security must come from within. A healthy partner can offer support, encouragement, and compassion, but they cannot replace self-worth or become the sole source of happiness. When someone expects another person to carry that responsibility, disappointment becomes inevitable. True love is remarkably different in the way it responds to change. It understands that people evolve over time. It allows room for mistakes, honest conversations, and mutual growth. It is patient without becoming passive, forgiving without becoming blind, and committed without becoming controlling. Love seeks understanding before judgment and respect before possession. It does not imprison another person with guilt or obligation, but gives them the freedom to remain authentic. Ironically, it is this that often creates stronger and more lasting bonds than control ever could. The greatest relationships are not built on the fear of losing one another, but on the confidence that both people are choosing each other every single day. That choice carries far more meaning than obligation, because it is freely given rather than emotionally demanded. When love replaces attachment, conversations become more honest, trust becomes more natural, and peace begins to take the place of constant uncertainty. A relationship no longer feels like something that must be desperately held together at all costs. but becomes a partnership where two complete individuals walk side by side, sharing their lives without losing themselves in the process. One of the greatest misunderstandings about relationships is the belief that staying is always the strongest choice. We are taught to admire endurance, persistence, and unwavering commitment. While these qualities are valuable, they lose their meaning when they are used to justify endless suffering. There comes a point when holding on no longer reflects love but fear. It is the fear of starting over, the fear of being alone, or the fear of admitting that something we invested so much in is no longer healthy. Choosing peace over pain does not mean giving up on love. It means refusing to sacrifice your well-being for a relationship that consistently takes more than it gives. Many people remain in unhealthy relationships because they confuse familiarity with security. Even when a relationship is filled with constant arguments, emotional distance, broken trust, or repeated disappointment, it can still feel than stepping into the unknown. Human beings naturally become comfortable with what they know. Even when it hurts, the pain becomes predictable, and predictability can feel less frightening than uncertainty. Yet staying in a place that slowly diminishes your spirit, simply because it is familiar, is one of the quietest ways to lose yourself. Peace is often underestimated because it is quiet. It does not demand attention the way conflict does. It is found in being able to speak without fear, to rest without anxiety, and to wake up without wondering what emotional storm the day will bring. A healthy relationship should become a source of strength, not a constant source of emotional exhaustion. If every conversation leaves you feeling smaller, every disagreement attacks your dignity, or every day requires you to ignore your own needs just to keep harmony, then the relationship is costing more than it is giving. Walking away is rarely easy. It often involves grief, disappointment, and unanswered questions. There may still be love, memories, and dreams of what could have been. Ending a relationship does not erase the good moments, nor does it mean the love was never real. It simply acknowledges that love alone is not enough when respect, trust, kindness, and emotional safety have disappeared. Sometimes the most painful decision is also the healthiest one because it creates space for healing that could never happen while remaining in the same cycle. Choosing peace also requires letting go of guilt. Many people believe leaving means they have failed, or that they did not try hard enough. In reality, every relationship requires effort from both people. One person cannot carry the responsibility for two hearts forever. When only one person is consistently apologizing, compromising, forgiving, and trying to repair what the other continues to damage, the relationship becomes unbalanced. Love cannot survive where responsibility is carried by only one side. Self-respect becomes the compass that guides this difficult choice. It reminds you that your value is not determined by another person's ability to appreciate you. It teaches that protecting your emotional health is not selfish but necessary. Boundaries are not walls built to keep love out. They are doors that allow healthy love in while keeping harmful patterns outside. Every time you choose your dignity over repeated disrespect, your honesty over constant pretending, and your inner calm over endless emotional chaos, you strengthen the relationship you have with yourself. The remarkable truth is that peace does not always arrive the moment a difficult relationship ends. Sometimes it comes gradually, through quiet mornings, renewed confidence, meaningful friendships, rediscovered passions, and the realization that you no longer have to fight every day just to feel worthy. Healing teaches you that being alone is not the same as being lonely, and that solitude often restores what unhealthy relationships slowly consume. The greatest act of self-respect is recognizing that love should never require the destruction of your identity, your confidence, or your joy, because the healthiest relationships are not the ones that demand you endure endless pain, but the ones that allow your heart to rest, your spirit to grow, and your life to flourish in an atmosphere of mutual respect, genuine care, and lasting peace.